girls, grab your beers.
Hey everybody, this is Charlie from Anthrax, and you are listening to today's Boondoggle.
This is Mark Metcalf, and you are listening to today's Boondoggle with Bailey on Domain Cleveland Radio.
You are listening to today's Boondoggle with Bailey on Domain Cleveland Radio. Yes, Kato Kalin listens to this all the time.
Welcome to today's Boondoggle. Now here's your host.
I am Monty Heath, so one Heath, and you are listening to today's Boondoggle.
Hey, what's up? It's John from Skillet, and you are listening to today's Boondoggle on Domain Cleveland Radio.
Fasten your seatbelts.
What's going on, everybody? It's Bill Bailey with today's Boondoggle. And real quick housekeeping note, if you're watching us on YouTube, on Rumble, BitChute, or Odyssey, please hit that follow and subscribe button. If you're listening to us on Spotify, Apple, Google, whatever podcast platform you utilize, please hit that follow and subscribe button. And hit us up on our socials on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter. We even do the TikTok. And so we can continue bringing you conversations like the one I'm bringing you today. I'm catching up with my good friend, Mr. Chief Pat Patterson. What's going on, Chief?
How you doing, Bill? Doing good today, man.
Good, good. Not to be confused with the original Intercontinental Champion of the WWF, Pat Patterson. This is Chief Patterson from, now what part of Florida are you in again?
I live in Gainesville, Florida, north central Florida.
Nice, nice. And you usually when I have people on for the first time, I like to get a little bit of a background. So do you remember originally what you wanted to be when you grow up?
No. I was a mischievous little boy. I was into everything and had no specific direction to do anything. That I was a little kid having fun, and as the years went on, I still didn't know what I wanted to do. I eventually got my degree in recreation therapy, so it was more leaning towards working in hospitals or the medical field.
Nice. So you still involved play, with work.
You gotta play, man. You gotta play.
Exactly. And do you remember when it was that you got the calling to serve your country?
It was at an early age that it was kind of instilled from my dad about serving your fellow man, if you will, and your, if not your community, your country. And I had a cousin that went into the Navy, into the Seabees, and actually he recruited me, and then back when the USS Stark was involved in that little altercation, that just kind of hit it home. So I needed to do something more. So yeah, I enlisted back in 1986.
Gotcha. And then and then now you've grew up in Florida your entire life, pretty much.
Yep.
And then what was where did you end up going to boot camp?
I went to San Diego for boot camp, and they've long since closed. And then I was originally had a 6-year contract to be a fire controlman. And after boot camp, I went up to Great Lakes and went to BEE school. And once I was done with that, I went on to my FCA school, and I just didn't understand the whole electronics world. It was, all this theory and everything. I didn't get it. I got to week 6 still up in Great Lakes, and I had to repeat that week and couldn't get through it. So they gave me a chance for another school. So I went to the operations specialist A school down in Dam Neck, Virginia, and then got through that okay, and selected my ship that was based in Charleston, South Carolina, the USS Robert G. Bradley, as guided missile frigate.
Gotcha. And didn't they still have like recruit training command in Florida back then too?
They did. They had Orlando, and I know they had San Diego back then was just men. I don't think it was they ever had women there. Orlando had men and women, and then they closed it down. The city bought it, and you can't even tell there was ever a military installation there when they changed it over. But it looks like part of a nice little community residential neighborhood. And so yeah, the only one that's changed or the only one that's the same and still there is Great Lakes.
Yeah. I mean, I remember like a couple of my friends that went before me, and one friend ended up doing the San Diego, the other one got Orlando and stuff. But of course, I didn't have the luck. I was in Great Lakes myself. But yeah, I ended up. Those options went away, and now that's all we got, I guess, huh?
Yeah. What part of the year did you go to Great Lakes?
I was in April, so it wasn't too bad, then.
Missed the winter time, huh?
Yeah, it wasn't too bad. It was just starting to get, it was more like still being in Cleveland, for the most part. And then what we're, coming from, just being a kid growing up and running around in Florida and stuff, and transitioning in the Navy, what are some of the oddest things you experienced coming into the military in the Navy?
Yeah, it was a culture shock for sure. It was, you got to do everything in big groups all the time. Boot camp first was, that was the biggest culture shock. And then everything was assigned duties, and, you have to do this at this time and this day, and, your duty sections and all that stuff. And it took a little getting used to. I did it, but, you just kind of do what you're told and you seem to be fine. But yeah, just the whole culture of being in the military was a bit of a change. So, but I'm glad I did it.
Oh yeah. And then what were you through your time? What would you say is without breaking OPSEC, like what's one of the worst places you'd served at?
The worst place I was, I've got to say Balad, Iraq. That sucked up there. I wasn't there long. I was in and out pretty quick when you and I were serving in Kuwait that year. But yeah, Balad I didn't like that place at all. Those guys didn't play nice up there.
Yeah. And I remember when we all reconnected at the end, how I remember some of the people that got picked for that, and their attitudes before and then their attitudes after. It's just like,
yeah, they had their own little world up there, and I remember they were doing some almost kind of like a mini psyche valve, wanting to talk to him. Why do you want to go up there? Just to make sure it was screwed on right before they sent him. But yeah, they're away from the battalion. You and I and a lot of others were there at Arif John, so that was of all places to be, I was happy to be at least at Camp Arif John.
Oh yeah, and then what would you say is one of the best places you got to serve at? Oh gosh.
We did a 6-month deployment to the Persian Gulf, and we stopped in Benidorm, Spain, and Naples, Italy. Naples wasn't that great, but we took a tour into Rome. And so between those two places, those I think were my most favorite pit stops. I wasn't stationed there, but it was just 2 or 3 days max. But I like those more than anything, I believe. Amsterdam was a close third.
Nice. And then what would you say is like one of your pet peeves with civilians since transitioning out of the military?
Oh, gosh. Things just didn't happen quickly, and I had a big problem with that. It was, being in the military for so long, you're used to, an order gets passed down, or if you see an issue or a problem, it's almost obvious. Okay, this is the solution. Let's do it and take care of it, and then the problem's gone. And with civilian life, it never happened like that. It seemed it was slow, pathetically slow. And I worked for the government, and I was getting frustrated with how things just weren't handled as quickly as I thought they could have been handled, and not being in charge, I had no control over it. So
yeah,
a lot of folks that have shared that same sentiment said they got certain diagnoses called adjustment disorder, which was directly related from military and sliding back into civilian life, and they just had a hard time adjusting.
Yeah,
I get it.
yeah. Everybody likes to just keep kicking the can down the road. I think in the civilian world, where we're just like, if the can's a problem, we just eliminate it.
Yeah.
But and then what is something that you feel like you'll always carry with you from your time of service?
I'm glad that I served in the military and met a lot of great people. I've had the honor of working with a lot of great people, and it made the time that much more valuable that, I could just stand beside somebody and you could just look at each other. And you and I served together over in the Middle East. And it's like, yeah, we did that. And you just feel proud about it. So there's nothing that matches it.
Yeah. Yeah. I remember for me too, it was just like, something that not too many others, either raise their hand to be a part of or experience, and, you go do your part, and then, but there's nothing like that. I remember like when I got deployed as a kid on active duty, and I was on the Theodore Roosevelt, and when we came home, all the people standing at the pier with the signs and stuff, and then there's my mom and dad with a sign, and that feeling of, wait, we did it, and and now we're back, and it was the same thing when we came back from our deployment, man. But this time I had two little kids, wait for me, and that first hug coming home, man, was just can't put a price tag on that,
Nothing matched it, I'm sure.
And then I'm sure there's many, but what is one of the funniest stories you feel you can share from your time of service?
I forget which ship I was attached to at the time. I was stationed up there in Mayport as a reservist, and I was doing my 2 weeks over the summer, and the ship was going to be meeting us in Gitmo, Cuba, and we met in Mayport, and we flew down to Gitmo, and it was interesting. The airspace is very, very limited when you're flying in there. It looks, if you're looking out the window, it looks like you're fixing to fly and descend into the side of a mountain. Then on the descent, it's making a 90-degree turn so you can match up to the runway, and thinking this is hairy. I mean, yeah, they didn't have much airspace anyway. So we were taxiing, and at the time, you stayed on the plane, and then you had a Marine Corps detachment come on board, and they were checking all our IDs before we could even get out of our seats, just to make sure these are American soldiers or sailors coming onto the base. So I'm sitting in the back, and a friend of mine, and he was a comic from the word go, and he says, "Hey, watch this." So he jumps out of his seat, and he gives himself this accent. I guess he figured it was some sort of a South American accent or something, and he's screaming, "Political asylum, political asylum. I love America." He gets down on his hands and knees. He kind of gets to where he's praying and asking the Marines, "I love America," and he tries to sing in a broken English with an accent, the Star Spangled Banner, and the look on these Marines' faces is like, oh shit, what the hell's going on?
Oh man, he's lucky that didn't backfire on him.
Oh man, yeah, but he says, "I'm just messing with you guys." That lasted all of a minute, but that was funny as hell.
Yeah, it's pretty ballsy. And then now you mentioned, I haven't asked this in a little while, but I know you actually work for the VA for a time period. What what is something there that you feel like the VA can still improve on?
It's tough to say. I know they've made great improvements since I started working there. But getting veterans timely appointments for whatever they need, and they've expanded much better on that. And there's so many different satellite offices in places that they have leased that's not on VA property, but they're leasing. And they've also started the video connect with veterans, so you can do just like you and I are doing and have a discussion with a doctor. You're limited, somewhat, but at least you can get, some face-to-face time, and they've improved on that. I'm having a tough time thinking what they could still improve on, because they've done so much in the last 6-7 years with all these changes and all these advances, but they're making it available, being able to see docs out in the community that's affiliated to the VA through that. And if you can't be seen at the VA when you need to, they make every effort to find a provider for the veteran near their home, especially if they're having to travel a long distance.
Yeah, I noticed that as well. Like from my first time getting off active duty and going into the reserves to now, and then our last deployment together and everything, is just how far it's come along. I really love the community care aspect too. Like you're saying, how you can go see someone in the community if it's a far drive, or sometimes even if it's not, if it's just that's something that the VA doesn't do. Like, I get to go do acupuncture and massage therapy now and stuff like that, for pain management,
Yeah. And they've been doing it for several years, but if you're having to travel even to come to the VA or go to another provider, and they even offer some travel pay. I don't know what it is, price per mile, but a lot of people were taking advantage of that. And before, they were just paying out cash at the cash window when the veteran went to his appointment, and then he was leaving, he'd check out, he'd get his cash, and he'd go home. And then now it's all direct deposit information, so there's no cash trading hands. So
that cash window, man, you'd be waiting there for a little bit too. And sometimes you're like, is it worth it?
Oh yeah, these guys would stand in line, and they moved it pretty quick. They moved it real quick. Once they saw that they checked in and checked out of their appointment, and they'd get them paid and send them on their way.
Yeah. And then what would you say is one of your greatest hopes for the country that you were willing to give your life for?
My greatest hope is that we have just a nonstop notion of serving your country from our young folks that are becoming of age, and I would hope that we still have a number of people that want to join, and even if they're just going to do one single tour, a single enlistment, whatever it is, whether it be active duty or reserves, I hope that we keep that instilled in our young folks, and we just keep our military strong.
Yeah, I agree. And then, we kind of touched a little bit on the transition and the adjustment disorder, but what do you feel we can do to break the stigma of mental health and PTSD?
That's a tough one. I mean, the military it's a very specific way of life. I don't believe there's anything like it out there, and they are continually looking at improving what's this lifestyle like, and how do we reduce the number of veterans that are getting, especially veterans that have service connected disabilities, whether it be psychological or physiological. They're always looking at what can we do better to ensure that our veterans are going to be healthy when they get old and gray. So I'm not sure, I'm not sure how that's going to work out. I know there has to be a, good order and discipline. We've always heard in our career, and things have to work and they have to operate smoothly. And when an order is put down, everybody needs to know that this is going to happen because this is the order, and we'll take care of it. I'm not sure what their long-term plan is. I mean, if they're looking at the next quarter century of how the military is going to be run, it's tough to say.
Yeah. And then, we talked, we mentioned it a couple of times, but how we met through our deployment to Kuwait together. A lot of good memories from that deployment. What would you say is one of your funniest stories or memories from that one?
I'm not sure. You were in quite a few of those, man, because you had I forget what your job was, but you always seemed to be into something, and you always just had a good time over there. You kept some morale going for people, and folks are down. You just had a way about you that got them feeling good about what they were doing and why they were over there. So I appreciate that, and you too, Bill. But yeah, there were so many things that we did that were fun, and a lot that not so fun. But we were there to do a job. But I think for the most part, everybody did a great job, and like you, glad we did it.
Oh yeah. It's funny too, because you say that you didn't know what I was supposed to be doing over there, and it's like, I don't think neither did they half the time, because it's like I was a yeoman by rate, but my entire like reserve career, it seemed like, I didn't really work in my rate because I was in like a small craft unit. So it's like I had to, either the officers handled all the admin and they sent us out, the enlisted out on the boat. So I became like qualified to be a small craft coxswain, and other guys were the engineers and stuff like that. And then we had the line handlers and stuff like that, So it's like majority of my reserve career, I wasn't even really working in my rate.
Okay.
And then all of a sudden I get picked, and and then the unit I was in before I left was like DFAS or something here in Cleveland. And then I get we all got kind of, what is that, individual augmented or something for this for that customs mission. And they see, oh, yeoman, so we're going to make you yeoman. I was like, I got to actually work in my rate and learn it now. It's just like, and it sucked. I hated it. It's just like, I can see why I always got out of the office all the time. And, I ended up hitting it off really well with Commander Robinson and Lieutenant Kolnicki. They were my superiors there. And then I had, Master Chief Atkinson, Chief Guzman, and Senior Chief Teeter, in that group. And it just like you said, it drove me nuts to be stuck in the office. So I would always kind of like either get myself to go out with Gosnell, or I think Sherman or whatever, to go check out the line, help everybody out that were doing, all the jobs of keeping the area. Oh, shit. Where was Fig at? I forget. They had the ones the people that were checking the containers, and they had the people that were cleaning the vehicles, the wash racks and all that stuff.
Wash racks and sterile yard. And
yeah. And I was just like, let me go visit these guys, let me get out of here. And even sometimes like go to Ali Salim or whatever. I was always getting out doing something,
Oh.
They'd be like, we have yeomen here. They're handling it. I'd let them handle their, the stuff. And somehow I was able to get out, and it got to the point where like Senior Chief Teeter was just like, he just looked at me and he knew I was going somewhere, He's just like, so what's today's boondoggle going to be, Bailey? And that's where this podcast was born, man. I got to give shout out to Senior Chief Teeter, because I kept that name and paying homage to him. I'm still figuring out what I'm trying to do. I just don't like to sit in one spot, I guess,
You had this, I don't know if you had it made, or I don't know where you found it. It was just an unusually large cowboy hat or a boonie cover or something. It was enormous. A dang big ass sombrero sized boonie cover.
Yeah, I think what was his name too? There's another guy that I got copied that from. But I know you'll remember this memory, the Halloween party that we ended up having.
I think I remember that. Yeah.
We ended up, I think Chief Williams and Chief Brockovich were Betty and Wilma Flintstone or whatever. Everybody was dressing up. That one, I forget what her name was, but she was she looked like the captain, and she dressed up like her. And
yeah, I remember that. They looked very similar. Yeah.
And mine, I kind of got to pat myself on the back, but I think my costume was the best. Because remember I became friends with a lot of the TCNs on base, and one of them gave me one of his uniforms. And I showed up to the Halloween party wearing a TCN uniform, and I brought a garbage bag with me, like I was collecting trash.
I remember that. I worked nights a lot of that deployment, or at least the first half of the deployment, and I'd try to pop my face in, we had little parties and cookouts and stuff like that, and I missed quite a bit at the beginning, but those were fun. That helped keep the morale up. Yeah, I remember the Fred and Wilma Flintstone. There was Maria Gardia. She made herself freckles and coveralls and farmer's overalls, and quite a few people dressed up. That was funny.
Yeah. We made the most of it. It's like we could sit there and we could just be miserable, and but it's like, I know for me, it's like I had 2 little kids at home, so it's like downtime. I'd miss the hell out of them, so it's just like I just kept trying to stay busy and volunteer myself for things like even DV missions and all that. I remember going and doing a few of the DV missions, and then even security details for when the Armed Forces Entertainment came and to entertain us and stuff. I ended up being security when Everclear played, and then when Scott Stapp from Creed played, and
he was there too. I missed him.
Yeah, he came and performed at our base. He was back with his solo band or whatever at the time, but it was really cool, man. I got to be his security guard, and after the show, they did the meet and greet, and then once they got through everybody, I hung out and talked to them for a little bit, and he actually made a video for me because I was missing my daughter's birthday. And I told him, how when Arms Wide Open by Creed came out, she was just like a baby, and I would like hold her and cry. And, it was just like how much that song meant to me. So he like sang happy birthday to her and recorded.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah. That was cool, man. And then another memory I remember is like we did that Liberty trip to the mall or whatever, the Kuwaiti mall.
Yeah.
Remember that? And the towers.
Yeah.
That was a good time. That was something else, man. It's like I've seen some fancy malls here, in the nicer areas of Cleveland, but nothing like the money they had over there at the Kuwaiti malls.
I remember they would have a somebody kind of just doing a little logistical run out that way before the trips would happen, just to kind of check the area out and make sure there wasn't anything that could potentially put anybody in danger. I forget what they called them. But yeah, they were just kind of getting, some folks were going, okay, we're going to be in Kuwait on our own without any official capacity.
Well, I remember too, the rules, everybody going over is just like, look, do not talk to the women, do not talk to the local women. And then we had a couple guys they couldn't help themselves. It's like, dude, come on, man. Don't get us in trouble.
I went with Lieutenant Kolnicki and Lieutenant Wynn and Lieutenant Lee, and Kolnicki and I were from the same NOSC. So he asked me if I'd want to come along. I went, sure. What were those called? They just kind of have to do a little look-see. It was a boondoggle.
Yeah, pretty much. And then, we recently did our little reunion in Dallas.
Yeah.
A lot of us got to reconnect down there. That's part of, I guess, what what we were talking about earlier, that experience that you have in the military and those bonds that you make and those connections that you make. And you could go like how long without talking to somebody, and then as soon as you reconnect, it's just like you pick up like right where you left off. There was like no gap or whatever, because we have those stories or those bonds that you just can't get, anywhere else.
Very true. Went through
some. That was a good trip. What was that?
I said a lot of us that went through the same crap. Yeah, it just kind of keeps that bond going, and you always got.
Yeah, I don't know if that's like part of trauma bonding or what, but in a good way, you know.
But
well,
we
like
all when we got together in Dallas, yeah, we just everybody got along. It was a great time, and went out in town, went out to the stockyards, met out there at the stockyards. That was a good time.
Oh yeah,
so,
yeah, it was a good trip. I hope we follow up. I know they were talking about another one in Nashville or whatever, but we'll see what happens.
Yeah,
it's been a little bit, but life happens. So I know a lot of us all get caught up and busy in life when we get back over here. But those trips, man, those are definitely something to keep going.
Oh yeah, hope they do.
And then we talked a little bit about you getting into recreational therapy. Like, what originally inspired that course in your life?
My dad majored in recreation administration when he went to the University of Florida, so I was exposed to that, since as long as I can remember. And he always, when I was old enough to be allowed to work, I got a job. I think I was 14, and I had to get permission from the school board to work at that age. But he always had a job for me. If I wanted a job, he had one through the Recreation and Parks Department for me. So, and I took advantage because I wanted to work. I wanted to make money. So he kept me going, probably just before I went into the Navy. I always had a little part-time job going. So that's what got me in it. When I went to college, I was looking for that specific degree program, which they didn't have at the time. And recreation, if you can imagine it, they had, I think, 5 different emphases. And so I picked the therapy part of it. So, but it was a fun career. I always, you asked me earlier, what I wanted to do with my life. And well, I know I don't want to work very hard. So yeah, recreation was right up my alley.
And then talk about a little bit about that. You were exposed to it at a young age with your dad, but then what was like the school and the training like for that field?
The schooling was, once I got past all the core classes that I needed in the first couple of years, I got to study specifically what I was going into. And I seemed like I did better in those classes than I did all the core stuff. So interested in it. And then once I started my career after college, I was thinking I really had to go to college to do this job. It just came so easy, but it could have been part of my training that made it easy. It could have been, I just, just being a friend to somebody in need. It just kind of came simple.
And what was, as you finished that training and then got into the field, what are some of, for the audience that might not know exactly what a recreational therapist does? What do you do?
Between teachings, classroom teachings and education and providing different experiences, and maybe kind of dive into somebody's psyche to see what kind of a person they are, what makes them tick, and try to gear their recreational experiences to what kind of person they are to get the most benefit from it, just to have a better quality of life. When I started working at a college, I was working for an organization that worked with kids that were kicked out of the public school system because they just couldn't play nice. And I didn't do that very long because the career path was very limited. So, and then I went to work for a nursing rehab facility. So it was nothing but geriatrics, and that was okay. And that lasted for about a year. And then I went to work for a small psych hospital, and they had a school that was part of that kind of more or less sponsored it, and same type of kids that were their welcome out of the public school system. And I had a blast with that job. I love those kids, and they all had a lot of issues from home that made it difficult for them. And I felt kind of felt bad for them. I was looking and reading their charts of kind of stuff they were dealing with at home, and it was real sad, to be honest. But that was I think one of my most favorite jobs at that time. And then I went back to school again to be a physical therapist assistant, And I did, that was my first job at the VA, and I started back in 2000 as a PT assistant, did that 3 years, and then an opening came up in the recreation therapy department. So I just kind of slid right over into that and did it since. But we did a lot of exercises, leisure fitness. We had an aquatic therapy program. We did a lot of that for the chronic pain folks. And then my last 7-8 years was at a homeless domiciliary for veterans. It was an offsite place that the VA had, and that was a blast. I could just the program was already established, and when I came in, I just had to keep it going. And had a lot of wonderful volunteers and volunteer organizations, and they're still calling me. I guess they didn't know I retired, but they're still calling me, asking them about they can come in and do a barbecue for the veterans. It's like, yeah, let me give you somebody's number you can call because I retired.
Well, let me know what the date is because I love barbecue.
Okay.
Sure, they love to see it still, right?
Oh yeah.
Now I know, for me on my journey after our deployment, like, we talked about the adjustment thing, and when I retired, I would get caught up. I would get myself caught up. I still do, a lot of times with how things don't happen the way I feel they should be happening, in my world, and but one of the best things that helped me, like, kind of with healing was this organization called Sun Valley in Idaho, or in Sun Valley, Idaho, is called Higher Ground.
Yeah.
And it was like this veteran organization where they took veterans with PTSD and took them up doing recreational therapy. We went horseback riding up into the Sawtooth Mountains. We camped out up there and went fly fishing. And, I got to drink water straight out of a spring coming out of the mountain and everything. It was amazing just how I felt, just being in that environment away from all of, the world and technology and everything, for one, but just, being in nature and getting out and being active, man, how healing that was. Did you like, obviously not breaking HIPAA or anything, but do you experience any of that with some of the people you worked with when they came in and just see the change,
Oh, absolutely. We had a few organizations. One was called a Soldier's Freedom, and that's not far from Gainesville here. And we'd go out there fishing. They had equestrian therapy. They had fishing. They'd have over the weekend camping. And there was another one, honoring the brave. And we go out kayaking and fishing. They'd provide breakfast and experiences. They had volunteers with them, lunch afterwards, get a few pictures afterwards. And we did that for a few years. And it was a blast. Their organizations, they just couldn't do enough for our veterans. And it was a nice thing to have. And we could certainly see when we'd have our meetings at work, and each of us would go around and discuss each of the veterans there at the domiciliary of, what they've been doing and, what's their affect been like, what's their behavior been like, have they said or done anything that's showing improvement. And anytime they went on these outings with me, they had a blast, and, they'd be talking about it for days. And during COVID made it tough because we weren't allowed to go anywhere. So it was, you're kind of stuck there on campus and couldn't go anywhere unless you're going to an appointment. But before and after that, we'd go to the beach. We were driving through Main Street at Daytona during Bike Week one year, and they were having a ball. And I took them out to lunch. We went to find this little mom and pop little seafood place on the beach and had lunch there and drove back. But yeah, things like that, just giving them experiences to show them, especially things that were free or were inexpensive, providing those experiences to let them know, if you're staying here in town, this is what's available to you. And, you can have a good time in life if you just kind of look for it and participate in it.
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
definitely. And as you, already mentioned now you're retired. What's retirement been like so far for you?
Love it, man. I've been doing a lot of fishing. I bought myself a kayak, so I'm hitting all the different waterways, some rivers and lakes, and fishing. And I went up to Vermont, New Hampshire, and did a little leaf peeping. I never had the opportunity to do that when it was peak season, but I got to do that. And and there's a lot of national parks in the United States that I would like to see. So it's nice to be able to do what I want when I want, and it's no pressure, no stress, and nothing bothers me.
That's awesome. That's awesome, Pat. Well, if you ever come down to like Cuyahoga Valley National Park up here in Ohio, you got to hit me up.
I'll look you up, man.
And then I want to ask you a couple questions I normally ask my guests that I have on. Me being a big music guy, always try and stay involved in that world as well. Who would you say are your top 3 musical artists?
Oh boy, AC/DC, Shinedown, and Aerosmith.
Nice. Well, unfortunately, it looks like we're not going to get a chance to see Aerosmith again. I don't know if hopefully you did at one point, hopefully.
I never got to see him. I'm disappointed that, it's not going to happen. I am going to go see AC/DC next summer, though.
Yeah, I saw they announced those tour dates. Definitely try and hit that one for sure. And then I've seen Shinedown a couple times. They put on a really good show. Yeah. But AC/DC going on tour with the Pretty Reckless. The girl that sings for Pretty Reckless was Cindy Lou Who in the Grinch movie. She's all grown up.
No kidding.
Yeah. So you got to check them out too when you go see them.
You get to go to a lot of cool stuff, man, in your line of work. That's awesome.
Yeah. I've been involved in music for a number of years, made a lot of friends and connections, and it's definitely I'm definitely spoiled, man. I can't just go to a show and enjoy it like the old days. It's like I gotta shake hands and kiss babies or something.
Yeah. What a great time, though.
Yeah, my girlfriend's like, "Hey, you just come to a show and enjoy it." I'm just like, I don't know, it's hard, and I don't know how to just be out here. But yeah, it's been cool, man. It's like I was able to, when Everclear played our bass, it's like I'm friends with Art now today. The singer of Everclear. And that was the first time we met. And he was talking about his sobriety out there, and I wasn't ready for it then, but he planted some seeds, and now I've been sober 15 years, so
they were playing at a small venue in Orlando a few years ago, and bought the tickets and actually paid a little extra because I wanted to do the meet and greet with them and chat with them a little bit. And I actually took a picture with me, and I told him, I said, well, I was at Camp Arif John when you guys came to play back in 2008. And he grinned and nodded. He says, yeah, I remember that. I said, that just really lifted our spirits. What a blast that was. I appreciate you guys coming to town. It was a great concert.
Yeah, definitely. And then what class do you feel should be mandatory before graduating high school today?
Oh gosh. What class? There's school has changed so much since I was in it, Bill. It's been 40 years since I was in school. I don't even know what they have other than your Common Core classes. I guess maybe I've never been a history buff, but I was, right now I think maybe understanding some of the history of this country and what it's been through and the changes that they've been through and to taking us to where we are now. And maybe throwing in some military appreciation in there. This is what it has taken to have a country so nice as ours. I mean, you and I have been to different places around the world, and we've got it really nice here. So, maybe some of the keeping the history alive of, where we used to be and the trials that we've had to endure and things to keep us safe here.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. And then who are 3 people who have inspired you and you can credit for making you the person you are today?
Oh boy. Both my parents, for 2, they were there for my whole life. And I wish I went to them a lot sooner than I did to tell them thank you. It had to take me a number of years and a lot of experiences and seeing how other people's lives were and to make me appreciate what I had. Just to be appreciative of them. And that my dad especially had to kick my butt back in the middle of the road more times than once. And my grandfather on my daddy's side was another influence. And he was a college professor at Georgia Tech. He worked for the U.S. Geological Survey. He did a lot of, he was one of the Kentucky colonels. Did a lot of good volunteer work, and nobody ever knew that. He just kept his accolades to himself. And after he passed, and we're going through all this stuff and seeing these certificates of things that he did, and he never said a word about it. He just did it because he wanted to. So between my parents and my granddaddy, yeah, those are the 3 that inspired me in my life.
Nice.
Yeah.
And then favorite toy as a child?
Oh, favorite toy? Gosh, I like the Rock'em Sock'em robots.
Oh yeah.
Remember those?
Yeah. Yeah. Those were fun. And then any message that you have for our military brothers and sisters currently serving overseas?
Just a heartfelt and sincere thank you for what you are doing, for the folks that were there before us and taking care of us when we were little and growing up, and the people that are in there in the service today and serving and keeping our country safe. I appreciate what you do, and we know what military life is like. We've done it ourselves, so thank you for keeping that torch lit and keeping it going, keeping us strong.
Amen. Well, Pat, man, I really appreciate you doing this for me, man. I appreciate catching up with you, and yeah, we'll definitely keep in touch and hopefully see each other at the next reunion.
I hope so. Thanks for having me on today, Bill. I appreciate you, and keep doing what you're doing, man. It's a lot of fun.
Thank you. You take care.
All right, you too.